Welcome to All Chat. My name is Jack Dawes. I'm here with Grayson Yada. Grayson, how you doing?
I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to just get this thing going. We've been having it in the works for the last year, it feels like, or
Oh
maybe
man.
2 years. It was at least since 2020 Worlds,
Oh, it's
and
it's been a minute.
it has been a minute. I'm
Yeah.
just excited that we're finally getting going. All the hurdles have kind of been jumped over, and we're ready to go here.
Yeah. You want to give
Uh,
us a little bit of background about how we
yeah,
got here and
yeah,
what we're
I'd
doing?
love to. So basically, me and Jack, we were college classmates. Huge League of Legends fans. Obviously, we're not pros by any means, but we're huge fans of the game. Always found ourselves chatting, getting into long conversations just about pro League of Legends, and that's kind of how this all came to be. We were just excited to talk about it, chat about it, and kind of share that with the rest of the world. So
So here we are with our little passion project, and
yeah,
hopefully we'll give a rundown each week of each of the four major regions. Talk about some LCS, LEC, LCK, and LPL. We're not analysts. We're not pro players. We're just big fans. So it's
yeah.
not a lot of analytical content going to be coming out, but it'll be a lot of just giving a rundown of the week, giving some opinions that no one asked for, and calling it a day.
Who knows? Maybe you guys might share some too. So
Yeah, yeah. Try and work that in eventually. But I say we
yeah.
jump right into it if
Oh
if
yeah,
you're ready
hundred
to go.
percent.
Yeah. So as of recording this, it is Thursday the 18th. So we've worked our way through the first week of the LEC, and we're 2 days into LCK. Um, LCS is coming up this weekend, and LPL is still a little ways off. So we'll save some time and mostly focus on the LEC and the LCK. LCK a little bit, huh? We,
Oh
we had
yeah,
some pretty major games. I know you wanted
yeah.
to talk about some. You
Oh
wanna
yeah,
start us off?
yeah. I mean, just for starters, some of the roster changes in the LCK,
Yeah,
insane. I
crazy.
mean, as far as my top four teams right now, I'm proud. Like obviously T1, you got to throw it on top.
Of course.
But Gen G is looking a little silly,
How, how did these rosters even come together? Like
right?
Chovy and Canyon? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And you got
That's
Keen
wild.
too, who's always always solid, and Pays. Pays is just an absolute stud. Like that kid is gonna be,
And
he's
he
gonna
hasn't
be,
slowed down. That's the
yeah.
thing too, is people were really high on him when he came into the league last year.
Hmm.
And now that they've played their first series against T1, he's not stopping at all. This guy is on track to be a superstar of the
Yeah.
LCK. He's
Oh,
he's
100%.
a gem in the rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Gen G has him, and Gen G has T1's number.
Oh
They
yeah.
took him down 2-1 on, I guess, technically for us, it's Tuesday in the middle of the night, but
Yeah.
that was an unreal series right there. That was a great way to kick off the LCK season.
So here's a fun fact for you about that one too. When I saw that game, I was like, man, it's just never ending for this Gen G T1 matchup. It's just
Yeah.
Gen G dominance all the way through, and I think they managed it. They talked about it on broadcast, but it's a 6 game winning streak now for Gen G, which
Wow.
I think is regular season matches.
Uh
So
huh.
they're 6 in a row now that they've
You also,
unreal.
yeah. And then they've taken, the LCK title.
Yeah,
Like last year, they
yeah.
swept it. Gen G was honestly probably one of my tournament favorites going into Worlds last year, and
Oh, 100%.
obviously BLG just has their number.
Yeah, the story of Last Worlds was Gen G and JDG with
Hmm.
BLG trying to nip at their heels, and T1 maybe getting in there. KT, maybe they have something going on too. But it was really everyone was looking at JDG and Gen G as the ones to
Yeah.
make it out 3-0. They were looking at meeting in grand finals because they're on opposite sides of the bracket, and
Hmm.
it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. Instead of just as usual T1 versus the LPL.
And they're like,
And we know
those
how that
odds.
went.
Rep the boys. I got Cloud9.
Hey,
They're still
we're from
struggling
North
to make it out of
America,
groups. Yeah.
but
But I mean, some really
we won't
really
talk
fun
about that
games
too much.
from. Yeah, we
Better
don't
than
talk about
LEC,
that. Hey,
at least last Worlds.
yeah, yeah. At least we have NRG to look
Yeah,
forward to.
exactly.
But yeah, some
Uh,
really good games between T1 and Gen G.
yeah. Honestly, the other series too, Nongshim played DRX, and
Yeah.
I was heavily surprised by Nongshim's performance.
I gotta say, I was not as impressed with those games. I was really hyped for DRX at the start of game one. The first
Yeah.
15 games, first 15 minutes from DRX in game one looked really clean.
Yeah.
I know LCK really has this top five, bottom five kind of going on there. It's a pretty top heavy league. So
Yeah.
I had no assumptions that DRX would make top five, but I was like, okay, this is the sixth place team. These guys look clean. And then it was just after that first 15 minutes, it was just all downhill for the rest of the next two matches. And I have to say, it looked messy in my opinion. I thought that the whole DRX Nongshim series, outside of maybe Jiwoo, Jiwoo,
I think Jiwoo. Yeah.
Outside of him and his pretty excellent performance on Aphelios, I felt like it was kind of just a mess of a series.
Yeah, I mean, Nongshim last season, they're one of the bottom two teams, I'm pretty sure. Their roster, it's a lot of similar players from last year. They brought back a lot of the same guys. But one guy that I wanted to point out is just Calmy. Calmy looked really solid, too, in the mid lane.
Yeah.
Obviously, DRX had a lot of rookies. They have 3 guys playing in their first full splits right now.
Right.
Sponge, Saytab, Plita played a little bit over the last couple seasons, but he was filling in ADC and playing support as well. So I think now he's having his first full support season.
Yeah.
But
He
they
didn't
have a
look
lot
bad.
of guys. Yeah, he doesn't look bad.
No.
I think they just need to kind of come together, let the rookies get, some time in the league, because that jump from challengers to the LCK is still a pretty big jump.
I mean, when you have these top 5 teams just trading around their talent too, it feels impossible to break it up into that like top echelon of players. There's just monsters of the scene who have been up there for so long. And I don't know, outside of something happening like that DRX roster where Zeka and Kingen just showed up, and now all of a sudden they're on these top teams and everyone sees them as these really excellent players. Outside of something like that happening, it just feels impossible unless you get lucky with a rookie, unless you have a Pays situation or you have a
Lucid.
a T1 situation where they bring up Guma, Zeus, owner, like unless you can somehow pull something like that, it seems like there's just no shot for a lot of these like young guys getting onto the lower place teams.
Yeah, it really is tough because those teams are super young. I mean, I was looking at the DRX roster. 3 of their players were born in 03 or later.
That's crazy.
I mean, like that's just crazy to me, right?
But
they do have some vets on their team too. They got Rascal and Teddy up there, so I think over time this season, if they can play how they did that first 10-15 minutes of that first game as Nongshim, I think they'll be pretty good. And then Nongshim again, they kept much of their same team from last year, so I think they'll grow a lot this year too.
I'll be interested to see how Rascal and Teddy do over the course of the split. I thought Rascal put in some pretty solid performances. I think there's some fair group of people that feels like Rascal kind of just gets jailed on every team that he's on.
Yeah.
And he actually should be in that upper echelon of teams. And I think a lot of people have some pretty high opinions of Teddy as well.
Yeah.
I felt the thing about Teddy's performance was I think he was on Lucian multiple games, and I'm not a fan of Lucian right now. I think Lucian Nami has not looked good for me. It felt like every fight that Teddy was going into, he'd run in, burst someone 75% of the health, and then he would take pot shots at people for the rest of the team fight, but he just never could get anything done.
Yeah.
And it just felt like that was the story of the series for me for Teddy was occasionally getting caught out and then just getting in these team fights where he just couldn't make anything happen.
Yeah,
so
just
I'm
all
interested to
Swedish, no
see-
finish.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if it's a Lucian thing, if it's a Teddy thing. But I felt like over multiple games from both the LEC and the LCK that Lucian Nami is just it's not what I want to see.
Yeah,
not right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially with this new patch, or I guess the new season, it's going to be really exciting to see what type of metas come out and what type of champions these guys hop onto. There's just a ton of different champions that I've seen play just over some of the minor regions too that I've been watching. A little bit of the LLA and like the LFL.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to see kind of where the meta settles.
Yeah. Speaking of meta changes and what I do want to see,
Uh-huh.
let's talk about Barrel. I
Barrel,
want to talk
dude.
about KT Rolster. Is it still Rolster or is it just KT?
KT
know?
roll. I'm pretty sure KT rolls.
Okay, well,
yeah,
let's talk about KT. Here's the thing about KT. Every year, there's a big group of fans who are just mega KT fans, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
get let down every year.
Yeah.
And I've escaped that so far because there's never been a KT roster that's compelled me to the same level that I have been through other rosters. And
Yeah.
part of that is I'm a big NA fan, so I care a lot more about the LCS rosters and I pay attention to those more. But over the last couple of years, I've been paying attention to LCK some more. And still, these KT rosters have just not been as compelling to me as some of the other rosters, the Gen Zs,
Yeah.
the T1s, sometimes the Damn ones, things like that. But this year, this power of friendship KT team, the reunion
DRX
of
2022.
Pyosik, it is
Yeah.
the Pyosik Deft Barrel reunion.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect up top, BDD in the mid lane.
Yeah.
This roster, the most fun game I've watched over the last 5 days was game 2 of KT Rolster.
Yeah.
Versus Fox.
Oh,
it was so
smoked
fun.
him too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The first game was a lot closer though than I was expecting. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't exactly close because KT's macro was just unreal. Like they were just pushing side lanes the entire game.
Yeah,
But-
just a different level than Fury,
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that was like their first game jitters, kind of getting that out of the way for sure.
Which
but-
is expected. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a solid team.
Yeah.
I mean, BDD,
just-
like you said, just solid
I-
players all around.
I can't wait to see more of this roster. This is the first year where I think KT is my early favorite team in the LCK.
Really?
I'll hold full judgment until we see a little bit more. But there's just something so fun about watching Pyosik get back into the LCK. He's
Yeah.
playing with Deft. He's playing with Barrel. Watching the Hui from Barrel.
Yeah.
The first game he has the most kills on his team. The T right after I think it was right after Deft. There's something about these players playing together and just like the power of friendship feeling that this
Yeah.
team has that it gets me hyped. I love Perfect too.
Yeah,
Their new top
Perfect
laner. He looks good.
He looked good.
Yeah. I think he's not technically a rookie because I think he played a little bit last year, but
Uh-huh.
he's a young guy. He's coming in the top lane. I had no idea what to expect from him, but he had 2 solid games.
Yeah, I mean,
It
he
yeah.
was on that Udyr the first game,
Yep.
just whatchamacallit it, getting all the minions. What is it? What is it called when you get the minions behind the turret?
Oh, proxy farming?
Proxy, yeah,
Yeah.
proxy farming, just
Yeah.
being a
then
menace
he-
out there.
His Cassante in game 2 was
Uh-huh.
nuts. This guy was taking 1v2s. There's that clip of Pyosik going, "Wow, perfect."
Yeah.
This guy was going crazy. It was really fun to watch. I think he's going to compete with these top level top laners. I think. I
Yeah.
think he's already has it in him. Well, I mean, it's tough against Fox because Fox looked a little jumbled.
Yeah.
Execute came back from the LEC to play on this team, and he
Yeah.
looked not great.
Yeah.
So it's a little tough to judge against this team, but it's got me having some confidence in this team.
Yeah. Well, I think down the line they're going to definitely be a team to watch. I mean, that chemistry is already there.
Yeah.
I think there's a few little mechanical errors, like Pyosik missed a few Qs, in Lee Sin first game where they could have had
Yeah.
kills, but it doesn't really matter if your macros kicking the other team's butt. So
Yeah. And I think that we see time and time again that a lot of these teams that end up winning tournaments and winning splits, a lot of it is coming together at the right time and having synergy and having just being able to work together in a way that other teams can't.
Yeah.
And it looks to me like this KT team is already in a place where they're more cohesive than a lot of these other teams are going to be for the next couple weeks. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if the cohesion that they're already showing and their ability to work together, I wonder if that's going to continue to be an asset throughout the season, if that's going to grow, or if it's something that other teams are going to catch up to and pass them on.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you have 3 world champions on your roster. I mean,
Yeah.
these guys know how to play the game, and they've been
Oh, yeah.
around for a while. So,
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I want to touch on before we move on from KT is
Sure.
Beryl is just an absolute Chad. He had,
Oh my God.
I mean, we kind of already touched on it. He had 10
Yeah.
kills, 4 deaths, and 27 assists in 2 games, both on Hue.
Unreal.
Just an absolute Chad. And the other thing, he plays windowed mode on stage.
I saw that.
Yeah. they,
So
they went back
here's-
to the pro view, and this guy's got, like, you see Valorant, you see
Yeah.
League of Legends, like he's just on his desktop playing in this
Yeah.
small little window.
But that really makes me wonder if that was just a spectator bug, if for some reason they were just showing a windowed mode. Because if he's actually playing windowed, that's insane.
That is the craziest thing, probably.
You've seen clips of fakers, like camera movements and stuff.
Yeah.
But never have I ever seen windowed mode in
Yeah.
pro play. That's wild.
You got Faker's APM, and then you got Beryl in windowed mode.
He's just playing gotcha games in the background. right there.
yeah, he's trying to get Genshin on.
Yeah, he's
just
trying to
tabbing
get
back
Genshin.
and
I'm
forth.
just alt-tab. Yeah.
Yeah.
Running back to lane, see if he can alt tab over to Genshin real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Earlier last night, DK or D plus played Bro as well, and we saw the first pentakill in the LCK.
That's right.
And it was a former KT player in aiming who's honestly, I think this DK or this D plus roster is also going to be really solid.
It's something.
It was
Yeah.
Bro, so hard to tell off first series.
Yeah.
But Lucid looked really good, and aiming looks really good too. And
My-
obviously
my only-
Showmaker's Showmaker.
So that is the one thing, right? Is Showmaker talked. He was pretty vocal last year about how he was feeling less motivated for the game than he has been in the past. And one thing I noticed from these games that they just played is Showmaker's back, baby.
Yeah.
He's back in a big way. Like
Yeah.
he's out roaming. He's styling on people. Like
Yeah.
this looks like a player who's back in the right headspace. He's winning the split. Like that's his mindset, right? Is he's back. So just seeing Showmaker back, it's sad not to see him be back with Canyon, but
Yeah.
just seeing that what looks like a Showmaker who's back in form, back in the right headspace, and hopefully happier than he was last year. It's really exciting to see because when Showmaker is on his game, when he's in form, he's easily top 2, top 3 mid in LCK always.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a change of scenery was just something that was needed for that whole roster. They kind of
Yeah.
went full super team mode last year. Obviously, it didn't work out.
yeah.
And now I'm excited to see how they kind of evolve throughout this season because I really like the roster. I really like Kingian as well. He had a rough split or a rough year last year, but I mean, D Plus is always one of the premier organizations in the LCK. So
Yeah.
hopefully that'll help bring them all back up to shape.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. And man, is D plus. They are the Showmaker aiming show right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Oh.
you saw the damage graphs after game 2, but
Insane.
it's pretty much Showmaker and aiming tied for topping the damage charts. And it's just the two of them. Just it's so crazy to see both of these players performing at such a high level. And I know aiming took home both player of the games for both
Yep.
games, but
Couple
I thought
pogs.
Showmaker had just an incredible game 2 as well.
Yeah, no, they look really solid. I'm really excited for them. I think the resurgence of Showmaker is going to be awesome, just for League fans in general. Like I'm excited, just knowing that D Plus is going to be kind of back in the mix, for sure.
Yeah. My only thing is, I felt like Lucid was playing well, but he seemed a little disconnected from the team over the course of the series. So I think if they can, there was a few times where he was getting caught out, or it seemed like he wanted to make a play that wasn't communicated to the rest of the team, and kind of it looked like a run in the moment, but it was really just, I think, a moment of just being disconnected from the rest of the team.
Yeah.
I think if Lucid can get really on the same page as the rest of the team, it's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, you don't just move on from Canyon if you don't have someone else in the pipeline, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. So a lot to expect from this guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, one last team that I want to touch on, or okay,
Sure.
2 more teams that I want to touch on really
Sure.
quick. Hanwha Life, love their roster as well. They have 3 of Genji's 2023 roster: Dorn, Peanut, and Delight, and then obviously they have Viper, one of the best ADCs in the entire world, in my
Yep.
opinion. And Zeka, like, you know, a little inconsistent, but you know what his peak is. So
Yeah.
it's hard not to root for those guys as well. But the last team that I kind of want to hit on is Kwandong Freaks,
Mm,
because they were T1's training partners during Worlds.
that's right.
So they pretty much kept their entire roster except they added Cuz off KT. And I think Cuz was honestly one of the better junglers last season.
Oh yeah, no, I think Cuz really got the short end of the stick. Like compared to all other players in the off-season period, I think Cuz really got the short end of the stick. I thought he was one of the better junglers at Worlds. I
Yeah.
thought that his Worlds performance was pretty outstanding compared to his own performance before and compared to the other junglers at the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, from what I heard, like Kwandong was just absolutely shitting on everybody, like in scrims and whatnot, and obviously training with T1 as they're aiming for a Worlds trophy.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna see a lot of pretty good League of Legends just scrimming those guys. So I'm excited for those guys. I think they play tonight or maybe tomorrow night.
Who do they play?
It's got to be Hanwha. Let's
That
see.
sounds right. Yeah, because they're the only two teams that haven't played yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think who else is left?
It's just them. Yeah. Just,
Yeah, right?
Just Kwangdong and Hanwha. That's going to be an interesting game because
Yeah.
there's a lot of high expectations coming in on HLE as well. I mean, to be expected with the roster that they've put together, the Genji Part 2 almost.
Yeah.
And then there's this Kwangdong Freaks team, which last year there was no expectations of.
Yeah.
And people had, no real interest in on a global level usually. And now I've heard these same rumors that when they were scrimming T1 for Worlds Finals and when they were just scrimming teams during that Worlds period, that they were monsters.
Yeah.
And so seeing this team, not exactly run it back, but more or less run it back with Cuz as well.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about, for my money, if we're talking about a team that's going to upset and get into that top 5 when they're not expected to, I think Kwangdong might be that team.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think what everyone's saying, like we kind of have to take that at face value. I mean, they're the ones playing the game, so whatever they're saying, surely, must be on par.
Yeah.
I want to just move on really quickly to the LPL. There's not too much
Sure.
about the LPL, but since we were talking about all these rookies and young guys that were coming up in the LCK, I just want to bring up JDG Sheer, who is their 17-year-old top laner.
Crazy.
Buddy looks like he's in middle school still. But of course, the Demacia Cup happened in the preseason, and it was, you would have guessed it, JDG and BLG in the finals.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, surprise. Obviously, JDG didn't have their full roster playing. BLG pretty much had everyone going. But I think that was a fun little tournament. We got to see a lot of the new guys on new teams. Obviously, Knight and Yagao switched
Right.
between JDG and BLG.
Yeah.
369 went back to Top Esports. Rookie moved over to Ninjas in Pajamas.
What an interesting team that is, too.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, 100%. And
I mean, any team that's got Rookie on it is automatically going to have eyes. But
Yeah.
it's an interesting little roster.
Yeah, for sure. And then Rare Atom, that's the one team out of the LPL that I think might surprise some people this year. It's a
Really?
17-team league, but
Right.
RA beat LNG with pretty much, LNG's full roster. And so they beat him in the quarterfinals at the Demacia Cup. And I don't know, Vikla has been looking okay. They have Zhao Shu in
Yeah.
the top lane. Like, I don't know if it's just they're playing well together or LNG just had a off series, but RA might be a sleeper team to kind of look at in the LPL.
That's interesting because it's really not. There's not a lot of big names on there that you'd expect to be competing, especially in the LPL, which is this huge tournament of teams.
Yeah.
17 teams is an insane amount of teams to battle through.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear you say that a team of players that you wouldn't assume are going to challenge for anything might be a sleeper pick to get up there.
Yeah. They looked
And I'll
really
be
good
interested to
throughout
see
the
what Vikla
Demacia
does,
Cup.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Vikla was Rookie of the Year only 2 years ago in the LCK.
Right. That's right.
So, I mean, you know, who knows what's going to happen. Obviously, he didn't look too good on FlyQuest.
It's so hard to tell what any of those players are going to look like because the roster was so good on paper, and it was such a catastrophe when it actually came down to it. So hearing that Vikla might be coming back to form, like you said, or that he's looking pretty decent, almost doesn't surprise me that much because, like you were saying earlier with some of these LCK teams, it might just be a change of pace. Just move to a new team, be in a new environment. We might see Vikla back to his rookie of the split kind of ways.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, League it's a year by year game for sure. The meta is always changing. Someone else is always in the mix for the top player every year. Yep. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how everything plays out in the LPL. Obviously, there's not too much really out yet for the LPL, but just some of those, you know, those are some pretty major roster changes, I'd say, to come out of the LPL.
To put it lightly.
Yeah.
Well, I say let's get into the LAC a little bit because that's where we've had, you know, we're 3 games deep for each team already. So I'm going to get into the LAC, talk a little bit about my big surprises. I think the first team I want to go to is SK, actually.
Okay.
This is a split where coming in, everyone had G2 as runaway favorites. That they were supposed to dominate the entire league.
Yeah.
And then there's a middle of the pack that's kind of fighting for scraps underneath G2, trying to figure itself out, and then a bottom couple of teams where people are like, not so excited.
Yeah.
And in this league, SK is the only 3-0 team.
Yeah.
And they did it in, I think, what's not being talked about enough, a pretty dominant fashion. These games that they're playing were not close. And I think that's really off the back of Nisqy enabling Isma. Isma is their new jungler.
Okay.
Irrelevant is looking
relevant,
insane. He's looking incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the guy is looking like the best top laner in the league. He is gapping like everyone he's played against. And
wow.
I think I'll hold off more judgment until we see him play some of these other big name teams, the G2s and the Fnatic, that kind of thing. But I know KDA isn't really like a determiner of how good a player is, but it's something interesting to look at.
Yeah.
And I know that they're 3-0, so it's going to be obviously slanted a little bit towards them because they didn't have any losses. But this guy, he has like a 14.5 KDA. He has like triple the next highest or something. Like he's just putting up numbers in their wins. So it's crazy to me that with just a couple changes in this team, that it's really just a different SK altogether.
I mean, they were solid in the winter split, I want to say.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and then they kind of just faltered in the summer, and they found themselves out of the playoff race for Worlds.
Yeah.
But I actually don't really recognize a lot of these names. Exakick and DOS.
Yeah.
Is their team a lot of rookies, or just like kind of some moving pieces
that played last year? So I think Exakick, I might be wrong here. I want to say DOS had some time before last year where he came in and out as a sub or played just like part of a split on some other teams in the past. But Exakick was a new player last year. I think Irrelevant. I don't know that Relevant was a rookie, but he's been playing for a year or just over maybe 2 years now. And then Isma is a complete rookie in the mid lane who's the Rock. And I think with a performance like this out of SK, I go back to Nisqy again because I think people give him credit.
Yeah.
But I still think he's one of the most underrated players in the West right now. I think people talk about how he enables his junglers and how he can make that work, but I don't think you can ever give this guy enough credit. Like no one had SK going 3-0. No one had SK in the top 5 for the most part. SK was considered to be a bottom half team by most people, and they're blowing people out of the water.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at their match list as well. They did have Fnatic.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, they took down Fnatic. Nisqy got a rematch with his old squad.
That's right.
And then Rogue too. Isn't Rogue supposed to be pretty good this year?
We thought so. If we're going to talk about Rogue, I don't have much to say.
Okay.
I'm pretty uninspired by this
Yeah.
team so far. I think they got a real reality check. They went 1-2.
Uh-huh.
They had a decent a win against G2, which was
Okay.
a surprise because
Yeah.
everyone was expecting that G2
G2
would
is going to be
this
the
big
team. Yeah.
powerhouse. But it's very G2 to be 2-0 against a 0-2 Rogue and then lose that game. That's a G2 classic. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
is it a write-off? No, but it's not that surprising.
Yeah.
But I think I'm a little uninspired by Rogue right now. It's nice to have him
Okay.
back in the league, but I don't have a lot to say about him.
Yeah. Another team I kind of want to hear your thoughts about is Heretics.
Sure.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, you look at that roster.
Yeah.
It's it's an older roster.
It's G2 2019 running it
Yeah.
back. They looked not great in their
Not
first
great.
game. They
Okay.
got pretty shut out by Mad, which
Okay.
was another team. We're going to get to Mad Lions. They
Okay.
deserve some conversation. Mad Lions and KC, we're coming for that conversation. But
Uh-huh.
if we're talking about Team Heretics, they looked pretty not great in their
Okay.
first loss against Mad, and then they came back with 2 wins. So maybe they're not completely washed boomers.
Yeah.
But they're an interesting team as well. I'm not that impressed by Perks.
Uh-huh.
I think maybe even since he left G2, I've
Hasn't
not been that
been-
impressed.
Yeah.
He was good on Cloud9,
Uh-huh.
but not inspiring.
Yeah.
And then he's jumped around Europe and not been jumped around. He was on Vitality, now he's on Team Heretics.
Uh-huh.
But he's really not inspired me. I think Yankos is always solid, so
Yeah.
I'm not that surprised that we saw some good performances out of Yankos.
Mhm.
I think the other major interesting story out of Team Heretics is Wonder.
Yeah.
From what I've heard from his teammates from interviews, he quit WoW to spam League, which
Really?
is crazy because all the stories that we hear about Wonder for the past 5 years or whatever it is that this guy just spams World of Warcraft all the time and then shows up for games and shits on people for the most part.
He's the
and then goes back to
European
playing WoW.
barrel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
Uses
from
League
what
to
it
fund
sounds
his
like-
WoW.
Yeah, but from what it sounds like, he's quit WoW.
Wow.
And he's spamming League and he's practicing, and I don't know. I think Wonder is in pretty good shape. He looked really good on Fnatic when he was
Uh-huh.
helping them qualify for Worlds last year. And
Yeah.
I think he's looking good on this Team Heretics roster too.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll see how those guys do this weekend.
Yeah,
Should we move on to Mad Lions? Because Mad Lions
we have to.
went 2-1.
But this is a big 2-1. This
Yeah.
is not. This is not it's a 2-1. They did a little above average. This was a massive overperformance. Pretty much, if you ask anyone, this is a huge overperformance. Going into this split, Mad Lions was expected to be pretty much last, maybe
Yeah.
second to last. People had them bottom 3.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone, any tier list you look at, was going to have them bottom 3. And they came out swinging. They absolutely came out swinging. Elyoya, man, you cannot underestimate this guy. He's leading
yeah.
a crew of just 4 rookies, and they're 2-1. And we have to talk about this Mad Lions KC game, because on the other side of this coin is KC, who are 0-3, one of the only teams that's 0-3. Huge expectations.
Huge.
Upset again. This is supposed to be a roster that Upset is going to thrive on. Every year people talk about, Upset is so jailed. This guy is insane. He's putting up numbers, but he's just so jailed by his roster.
Uh-huh.
Kind of hard to say he's jailed by this KC roster.
Yeah.
He's got Bo, Saken in the mid lane, Saken. I'm sorry if I butchered that. He's got Cabochard in the top lane. He's got pieces around him that should make this work, and they're 0-3. But this Mad Lions KC game, I don't know if you heard about this game. It was nuts. This game almost by itself makes me think, and this is another thing I want to talk about, that we might be in for an esports renaissance.
Really?
Because the numbers that this brought was insane.
Yeah.
I wish I had it more up
Like
in
for
front of me.
viewership.
For viewership.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. I mean, I know
So-
KC is probably aside from the G2 and Fnatic side, probably the most followed team now that's in the LEC.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. I haven't checked their follower accounts, but if they're not third, they're higher.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they have a cult following. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's pretty hype seeing something like that through the LEC. It gives me, football vibes.
oh yeah,
Right?
the
It's
blue
pretty
wall.
awesome.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but the game was on a Monday,
Uh-huh.
and across league viewership on Twitch, it was at 800K viewers on a Monday.
800,000
Best of one.
viewers?
For a best of one on a Monday.
What?
That's how many viewers they pulled. They
That's-
had, I think Ibai and I'm gonna forget his name now. I thought I wasn't gonna forget his name. I don't remember who it was, but there was multiple streamers who
Uh-huh.
had over 100K on
Really?
their streams during this game. I think Ibai hit 220 or something like that when I checked.
Oh, wow.
And then you have the mainstream viewership, Cadril viewership, and a number of other places. But altogether, all in on Twitch, I think it was just Twitch alone, was like almost 800K viewers for
That's-
best of one on a Monday.
That's crazy. That's
Insane.
insane viewership
Yeah,
for a Monday LEC. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't realize that it was that big of a game, like that viewed.
yeah. So they broke. I believe the record they broke was most viewership for a best of one in the LEC. Period.
Oh wow.
Which is insane, and they're putting up numbers,
Mhm.
and I think having a rivalry like that's the other part.
Yeah.
the Spain versus France.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
having this like regional rivalry is just bringing fans in force. It's something that we don't have in North America
Mhm.
that really has been built up over the last couple of years in Europe. Just like the anticipation for having these teams get into the league,
Yeah.
and then the ability to see these regional teams play against each other with like the mostly Spanish roster on Madden and the mostly
Mhm.
French roster of KC.
Yeah.
It's when people talk about ways to drive viewership. I mean,
That's
there's not a lot more you can ask for.
Yeah. One thing I want to bring up is in Europe, right? They don't have, aside from football, they don't have too many major sports leagues like in North America. And I say the same thing about the LPL and LCK. The reason why those three leagues are so successful, I think, is because they don't have, any major sports, professional sports, right? They obviously
Yeah.
they have their own regional leagues, but nothing on the level of like the NBA, MLB, or
That's
NHL,
interesting.
right? So
Yeah.
a lot of those followers that would be, like none of my buddies who are from the States or Canada know much about League of Legends.
Right.
But I'm sure a lot of the people from Britain, France, Spain, they all know about League of Legends just because these are their country's teams, basically.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the LCK. Like I had the chance to go out to an LCK game last year,
That's right.
and it's crazy the fans that are there. Like they're just everyday Korean people, but they sell out like within minutes their tickets, and there's just
Insane.
so much following and such a big community surrounding League of Legends in those three regions that I think what you're saying about a League of Legends renaissance, I think if that continues, at least in Europe, I mean, obviously the LPL and LCK, their viewership numbers are pretty solid.
Yeah.
If that can continue in Europe, though, we'll see a ton of new talent coming out of the LEC.
Yeah, that would be huge, and I think we can talk about this Renaissance idea from Korea as well. This best of three between Gen G and T1, they just broke a record too. I think they
really?
had 1.1 or 1.3 million viewers on that series, which is even more than they had in Europe. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's bigger in Korea, so I guess that's somewhat to be expected, but. I think it was somewhere in the 1.1 to 1.3 range.
That's-
Having that many viewers on just a start of season best of three, that's wild.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
I mean, for any Western viewers, that game was at 4:30 or no, 2:30 in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're in
Yeah.
California, so I mean that ranges from 2:30 to 5:30 in the United States and Canada.
Yeah.
So to have 1 million people watching, because not a lot of them are on Twitch because Twitch is banned in Korea. So those
Right.
are pretty much all out of Korea
Yeah.
viewers, which is insane because everything goes off of Afrika over there.
Right.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So just really, really insane numbers coming out of LEC and LCK so far, which after so many years of doom and gloom, especially since COVID and especially in North America,
Mhm.
it's so nice to be breaking viewership records, even though it's not in NA. And we'll see what happens with an 8-team LCS,
Yeah.
losing teams, potentially losing fans. At least we're back on the weekends.
Mhm.
But it's nice to see that in the two leagues that have both gone so far, both of them have broken, and that's really exciting to me as a fan.
I think a lot of fans came back when they saw that T1 and Faker won Worlds. You know, I think a lot of people grew up on the old Faker, 2013, 2015. I wasn't too into League of Legends at the time, but anyone who's, who grew up during that time and was a League of Legends fan, like Faker was a bona fide superstar in like the entire world,
Yeah.
So it's cool seeing him get his world's, his fourth one.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a reason or a contributing factor for that like renaissance that we're seeing.
I believe it. I bet. Yeah. I think there's something to be said for having the most popular player and the most popular team win the world championship. I
Mhm.
think I would bet money that you're right, that seeing Faker get that trophy again after, it's been so many years. And
Yeah.
with 10 years between his trophies, I would bet you're right. I would bet you're right. That's bringing people back. Yeah.
Speaking
Just-
of, oh yeah. So speaking of new viewers and like changes that are coming, I kind of want to hit on the LCS. Unless
Sure.
there's anything else you want to bring up about the LEC.
I think we covered most of it. Yeah, there's a couple other teams we didn't really talk about, but I don't have much to say about them. So yeah, let's go LCS. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the LCS is going to be really exciting. As as someone from California, I'm really excited to see how these changes are going to impact the LCS and kind of how it grows because of it.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think an 8-team league. It's going to be interesting. I'm really curious to see how shaving down the league. There's really two main pools of thought right now, which is one, it's condensing the league. You're only going to get better players. It's going to be higher quality games,
Yeah.
better teams. And the other people who are saying, there's people who always say this, but it's, LCS is dying, the league is dying. We're just letting go of teams now. Like we're going nowhere fast. The players that are on the teams now aren't even the best players. There's budget cuts, and we're getting rid of the NACL and yada yada yada. So I'll be really interested to see which one of the two it is. Is
Yeah.
it do we show up on Saturday? Do we watch the games and do we see some really sketchy looking games with low viewership, or do we have fans that come out in force and start repping their teams and we're back on the weekends, we're at a good time slot, are we going to start seeing a lot more viewership?
Yeah.
I think Saturday is going to be really a telltale moment.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really excited for Mark Z too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's congrats to him on
Huge.
becoming the new commissioner. I'm really excited, obviously, because we see him all the time casting,
Yeah.
and we've kind of gotten to know him over the years, and I think what he's going to be bringing to the table, like already what he kind of showed off in that video, that little changes video. I love everything that they're kind of implementing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's worth talking about too, is the live patch
Yeah.
update. The fact that
That's
LCS
gonna
is going to be
unreal.
the only region that's playing on live patch,
Mhm.
and NACL is playing on that too.
Yeah.
Huge. I think one of the things that's kind of flown under the radar a little bit, and I can understand why a little bit, but is the NACL changes.
Yeah.
For one, they're being played directly after the LCS now, so going straight into the NACL, people who are
Yeah.
just going to stick on and watch them because why not? But we're also seeing that they're also playing live patch, which is huge. So it's another reason, if there's people in other regions who want to see the game being played on live patch, the only place to go do that now is LCS or NACL. So
Yeah.
I could see that driving viewership, especially from other regions too. And then the other thing for the NACL is Fearless Draft.
Yep.
Which is going to be really interesting.
That's going to be super fun to watch.
Yeah, the first Western region, I guess, to implement
that
Fearless
full
Draft.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that style of draft just because, there's so many champions in the game now.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, might as well get to see them all on stage,
Yeah, and for people who don't know what Fearless Draft is, it's I correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's once a champion is played by a team, they can't pick it again for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
that
From
right?
what I understand, I think that's how it works. So there's going to
Yeah.
be 20 champions every single game that are just taken off the list.
Yeah, which
Right,
for
Or there's still bans.
there's still bans.
Yeah, okay.
But also, once you play a champion, it's off the table for
Yeah,
for the rest of
okay.
the series. So it's going to be really interesting, especially for a developmental league,
Mm-hmm.
where it forces these NACL players to have a wider champ pool, because you can't just play. You can't be Arma, who is the plays 3 champions: Dino Gnar, regular Gnar, and I don't know, Gentleman Gnar, or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't be a one trick in the league. You can't have a champion pool of 2 or 3
Yeah.
or whatever. You have to have these bigger champion pools, which is going to hopefully, fingers crossed, is going to mean we get more diverse players in the LCS and people who are able to play more things. And hopefully that means a more interesting league and more successful players.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see how that works out.
Me too. I think in combination with the live patches as well, that's going to be awesome to see.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of pretty fun team comps that we're going to be seeing over the next couple months here,
Yeah.
at least in the
If you-
Challengers League.
If you think about it, the NACL is going to be one of the most unique ecosystems in the whole world of League Esports. They're the only region that's live patch and fearless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's going to be one of the biggest things just for the sport in general. Who knows how that, other leagues, other regions are going to try to implement some of the strategies that the LCS is taking on here just for their own sake.
And man, do I have my fingers crossed that it's a good thing.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
There's so many NA doubters, and some people might say with good reason, but I'm not ready for this league to die.
No.
I think we've still got some fight in us.
Oh, definitely. And it takes us too, it takes the fans to keep it going. And so
Yeah.
hopefully something like this, keeps the American, or at least the North American, fans.
Dream alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You heard it here first. All chat. This podcast, we're saving North America.
Yeah.
We're, single-handedly, we're gonna save the LCS and North American esports.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
jump on the bandwagon early. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, get in here now.
Yeah.
Start investing, because we're saving NA.
One step at a time, right? One step at a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Well, I think we're getting close to wrapping up time, but
Yeah.
real quick before we go, I do want to touch on a couple of the LCS rosters.
Yes,
ahead of this
absolutely.
weekend.
I mean, we
Yeah.
can't end the podcast without talking about
Cloud9.
the guys that you're repping right now.
The boys in blue. We have to talk about it. Yeah,
Exactly.
No, this roster is different.
They're
It-
going to be gross.
It could be so. It's tough to know because it's basically a super team.
Yeah.
Right? So, is it going to go up in flames, or are we going to see the most insane stacked roster of all time? And time will tell.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to find a reason not to root for these guys now too,
Mm-hmm.
because Fudge, Blabber, JoJo, Berserker, Vulcan.
Yeah.
You have 3 native NA players.
Yep.
You have Fudge in the top lane, who's from OCE, but is now because
Basically,
whatever,
an NA
basically
talent. Yeah.
an NA talent, and then Berserker, who has shown internationally that he stacks up against the best ADCs in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and he can go toe to toe. He was on T1 Academy before he came over to the LCS, and he can go toe to toe with these international AD carries. So
Yeah.
you've got the one of, if not the best junglers NA has ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
You have, JoJo, who's come in and absolutely destroyed the league and
Yep.
is looking like hands down the best mid laner. You have an ADC who can compete internationally.
Yep.
Vulcan is easily a top 5 all-time LCS support.
Yep.
I would have him maybe top 3, something like that. But he's incredible.
Yeah.
Love the guy. He's my favorite support by far.
Uh-huh.
And then Fudge, who people love to get down on Fudge.
Yeah.
People love to say, kick Fudge, get this guy out of here. He can't do anything. And they get really narrow-minded about his international performances, I think. I think people see the way that he plays internationally and how he doesn't always stack up the way that they're hoping that he does.
Yeah.
And they think it's a reason that he should be off the team. But this guy just demolishes domestically.
Yeah.
You're not finding a better
Top laner.
domestic top laner.
Yeah.
You're not.
100%. I mean, he's basically been, top 2 top laners for the entire LCS over the past, 2 seasons?
2 or 3 years?
Yeah, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's he's not a pushover. Obviously, internationally, he might have his struggles, but I mean, that's all of North America,
Yeah.
You can't just pin it all on him
Yeah.
just because C9's the favorite, team to come out.
Yeah, we're going to say Double Lift isn't a great play. We should kick Double Lift because he went 0-6 at Worlds on that TSM run. Like we're not doing that. It's NA has struggles at Worlds. Fudge specifically sometimes has struggles at Worlds, but he's only been in the league he's been in the league for a few years now. I won't try and make it sound like he's been in
He's
the league for a
like
while.
a rookie, yeah.
He's definitely one of the older players on this team. But I mean, the guy. There's nothing more you can say about his domestic performance. He's up there with Impact and Someday. For the longest time, it's been Impact and Someday are the bar. If you can't hang with Impact and Someday, you can't hang.
Yeah.
And Fudge is always up there. He's always competing. And that interestingly segues a little bit into another roster that I'm interested in talking about, which is this TL lineup with Impact being back on his squad. Yeah, coming in as well.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see how Impact is going to do on this TL lineup because for people who didn't see it, when he was rumored to be on this team, when he was in talks, he tweeted something about being home. He was back home, right? So seeing him be so passionate about going back to TL, is the LCS in danger of TL taking over again? Maybe. I don't know. Are they going to compete? It seems like they might.
I think they have a really good chance to be a top 3 team in the LCS.
Yeah.
Umpty, for me, was really solid on Bro last year. I think he was one of the more underrated junglers within the LCK. I mean, LCK is a very top-heavy league, but every player that's playing in the LCK is, a good player, no matter 1 through 10, from T1 to Nongshim, right? So, I think Umpty's going to be a huge piece for these guys. APA is going to have half a season under his belt now. He's not coming in and trying to be the saving grace of their team. And Jan too. He's going to have he has a full year under his belt now too. I think once he builds up his confidence, that's going to be so big for this team and just for him personally.
And then you have Core JJ, who's just the staple, the glue of the team. But
exactly.
There's been some really interesting conversations about TL, and I think you're right. I think there's a lot of reason to believe that this is a top 3 team competing for a trophy. And I think APA and Jan are question marks for sure, especially APA. I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of questions about APA.
Yeah, champion pool.
Champion pool being a big one. Past teammates will tell you that vocally on Twitter.
Yeah.
But this guy, he could be, if he can continue the growth that I think we've seen from him so far, I think we could be looking at another mid laner that's a staple of the LCS.
This guy was in college a year ago.
Right.
So, I mean, you can't just count someone out after half a year in the league.
It's hard to say where he's going to be. And we can talk about his world performance. We can talk about his limited champs pool. But for being a rookie, like, I think this guy has and especially when you have Impact and Core JJ on your team as your rocks, you can't have better veteran talent to build up these new guys than Impact and Core JJ.
Yeah.
Like, come on, These guys are veterans of the LCS at this point. They were huge in the LCK, and they've just been monsters their entire career. So I think there's a lot that APA can learn from this team.
Yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's 2 world champions, no?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Impact and Core JJ, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
guys know how to get it done.
Yeah.
I think APA, like you said, there's a lot to be learned from those guys. And same with Jan, you know?
Yeah.
I think having a full season with Core JJ, obviously they both speak Korean, so there's no language barrier there. And I think this next season he's going to be a completely different player. I haven't seen too much about him, like any of his streams or anything, but I think just having anytime you're a rookie in any league, like I'm a huge fan of professional, like, you know, hockey, baseball, basketball, that anytime you're a rookie, you're not expected to go in and just dominate. Like,
Right.
you might get your hopes up because you have like a Pays or a Jojo Pune, you know?
Yep.
But those guys are one-offs, and some guys
Yeah.
need a little more time to develop. And I think
Yeah.
Jan is going to have that time and really show out this year.
And it's fully possible that either one of these guys we've seen their peak and that they're at where they're going to get to. But I'm going to hold out judgment. I think we got to see at least another split before we can make any kind of judgments on these guys.
Exactly.
But we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the other 2 big names of the LCS right now in FlyQuest and NRG. NRG is the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
These guys
They're basically running it back.
basically running it back with Huhi, which for
I
my
think is an
money,
upgrade.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Nothing bad to say about Ignar. I actually I thought Ignar overperformed my expectations. That's a personal thing. Maybe other people had him rated differently than I did, but I thought from my perspective he overperformed my expectations. But again, there's something to be said about these power of friendship teams. And I think bringing FBI and Huhi back together after they played on Golden Guardians, after they played on 100 Thieves together, I think bringing them back into the same org with a team that's already so cohesive with this topside contract Stokela Palafox, I think you've got a really solid roster. And this is a team that's had no expectations basically ever. And they were the best Western team
At Worlds.
by a long shot.
Long shot. It's just a bunch of misfits, you know, the guys that no one wanted, right?
Yeah.
I mean, heck,
And
CLG, you know, once they folded, it was like, okay, well, where are these guys going to go?
Right.
And then here comes NRG.
Yeah.
Pick them all up.
And they're
But
doing
it's-
it.
Yeah. I
They're-
think
they're
it's,
doing the thing.
yeah, I think, again, power of friendship, that's going to
Yeah.
be a big factor for those guys.
Yeah. And we're going to see a C9 versus NRG game right off the bat.
Yeah.
Which is going to be fascinating to watch. I'm so excited to watch
yeah.
that game. I think it's going to be an absolute banger. But I know a lot of people have NRG power ranked second underneath this Cloud9 team, which understandably when you see this Cloud9 lineup, but you can't count out this NRG team.
Yeah.
I mean, their win over G2 at Worlds too.
Dominant.
I still go back and watch that.
Yeah.
That's my World Finals.
Yeah.
as an LCS fan.
Yeah.
That was the best.
Just
That
for
was
our own pride,
awesome.
too.
Yeah. And man, contracts in that series.
Oh, my God. Him and
He
Palafox
was
were unreal.
unreal. He was one of the best Jarvins at Worlds.
Yeah.
He might have been the best Jarvan
And
at Worlds
Palafox
in that
looked
series.
insane on Nico, too.
Yeah.
I think that was probably one of the more fun Nicos that we got to see.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. Is that we're seeing a lot of Nico right now in both LEC and LCK, and we have some pretty good Nicos in the LCS.
Yeah.
Which is pretty exciting to me to see native NA talent mid laners who are good at one of the popular picks right now. Like Palafox and APA to some extent are known for their Nikos. And I'm sure Jojo Pion has a Nico.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of the other guys do too. But like we have multiple mid laners who are known for this champ, which to me is really exciting because I think there's a possibility that, especially if it becomes popular over this next year, they continue to play it, that they have a real shot at competing internationally with this champ.
I mean, APA was the one during Worlds basically spilling all the beans about Nico's secrets. Right?
Right. I forgot about that. That's right.
And then we saw it literally, what is it, a game later with G2 when
That's
Caps, turned into the cannon minion.
Yeah.
And
with
tanked the entire, like, tanked what, 6 turret shots? Like,
some insane, just the most contentious play of Worlds. Maybe
Yeah.
people were pissed, but it was sick.
yeah. I mean, you gotta, like, that's part of the game, you know. And
Yeah.
APA was the guy that, you know, figured that out.
Yeah, or
Which is-
at least was telling people about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean,
I think
those 3 teams
Yeah.
absolutely are going to be competing. And then we got to talk about this FlyQuest lineup
Mhm.
because
it's a brand new
Whippo,
look.
Inspired, Jensen, Masu, Busio.
Busio, yeah.
They, you know, talk about a Bud Light ace. We got 5 new players coming in.
Yep.
We have multiple players who weren't playing either in the LCS or at all last
Yeah.
year. Inspired and Whippo on the bench doing nothing last
Yeah.
year. Masu just came out of the NACL and from my understanding, very, very little competitive experience. He's
really?
had a trajectory like this. He's just shot up through the ranks. Was the most? I think he won the most valuable prospect award in the NACL.
Oh, wow.
And you have him joined by these 2 guys who've been on the bench. Jensen, who has only ever missed Worlds once with Dig last year, but that was a disaster for another day.
Yeah.
And then Busio, who
Yeah.
looked solid on 100 Thieves and is looking, again, like one of these next-gen LCS talents.
Yeah. I think they're going to be a team to watch for sure. I mean, obviously everyone's going to be a little curious how they show up the first weekend here, but I mean, it's a complete 180 from last year's FlyQuest team.
Sure.
They're trying to, you know, basically have that super team.
Yeah.
But now they're kind of now it's the blend of old and new talent right now.
Yeah.
So I think when you have something like that, there's always something to learn from those older guys for the young guys, and even vice versa. Like those old guys can learn something from the new guys. And I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
going to be pretty cool to see how that team kind of evolves throughout the split.
I think that Inspired coming in is going to be probably the most interesting player for me to watch in this opening weekend. Aside from these big games of like Cloud9 and NRG and all that, seeing what level Inspired is playing at is going to be really interesting because he went back-to-back MVPs in LEC and LCS and then disappeared
Yeah.
for a year.
Yeah.
So he was taking the league by storm.
Yeah.
And then he's gone. So having him come back, is he going to be a top jungler in the league, or is he going to come back and look like a player who's been on a break for a year? And I don't know what the answer is. I have no
Yeah.
idea what the answer is to that.
Only time will tell for that, right?
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting. I'm
Yeah.
really excited. I think these top 4, for my money, they're the top 4 teams. I think C9, NRG, FlyQuest, TL are looking like the top 4, and I think it's going to be a really interesting top 4 mix.
Yeah.
And then I'm not excited about the other 4 teams as much. So.
Yeah.
But the top 4, I'm really excited.
They're
about.
pretty. Yeah, they're going to be exciting to watch. I think there's some guys here and there on the bottom 4 teams that, you know, could kind of hit on, like a Quid. There's a lot of guys that came from DSG who obviously won NACL last year. A lot of those guys got the call up, but yeah, not too many exciting names or moves when you kind of look at the top 4 teams and how they're shaped up.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we're going to hit on any other names, we got to hit on Sniper. He's finally in the league. This guy has been hyped up since the 100X days. He's been a challenger player since he was like 13 or something like that.
Something
He's
silly.
coming in at like the lowest age that you can be in the LCS. So seeing him in the league is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
And then I think Dignitas is interesting to me too. Having Dove come in with Rich, and then we see more of these LCK imports with Castle and Mask coming into Immortals, and Ole, of all people, coming back to the LCS.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about these moves. If they're players who are coming into the LCS and they want to build a career here, and they're intent on improving and working with these teams, I'm here for it. If they're here to make the league better, if they're here to to make it happen, then having these LCK
Imports.
players come over is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
But if we see what we've been seeing from the past couple of years, where we have these players who come in and are basically mercenaries for a year and then leave, it's hard for me to get excited.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's tough. I would much rather see
Homegrown
NACL
talent.
players come out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm loving the Masu coming up. I'm loving Yeon getting another chance, APA getting another chance,
Yeah.
Insanity getting another chance, Zazel coming up, Fate God getting back into the league.
Yeah.
These are moves that like a lot of people not so certain about how good are they going to be, but it's exciting to me because it feels like there's a chance for these players to be in the league for a while and to be mainstays.
Yeah, I
And-
think it's definitely a new generation that's kind of coming up here, and it's almost
sure.
all of it's homegrown.
Yeah.
At least played in the NACL at one point, making their LCS debuts. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna be like that's just huge for people looking up to these guys too.
Oh yeah, big time.
So I think anytime you can have more homegrown talent, I mean, anytime someone gets drafted to their hometown team, right? That's one of the biggest deals for that city. And so
Yeah.
I think for North America having more NA talent, and obviously the imports are it's cool when they come over. Like the Pyosik experiment was cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, as you can see, it doesn't always work out the way you think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it'll be
so-
cool to see how these young guys perform.
It'll be an interesting league.
Yeah.
For sure. And as much as to me it feels like a top 4 bottom 4 league, I'm excited even to be proven wrong about that.
Yeah.
I would love if I was proven wrong about
Mhm.
that. I wouldn't love to see collapses from these teams,
Yeah.
but I would love to see some of these teams that I'm not as excited about
Coming out with
proving that they're up there.
Yeah, coming out with competitive rosters and
Yeah.
playing competitive games against some of these top guys. I think that's what the league needs more of. Like, we don't need teams
Absolutely.
going, 0-16 in a split, right? The more parity we can get, the better. And I think
Yeah.
that's why going down to the 8 teams is also going to be, it might suck right now, but I think in the long run right now, that's just going to bring up the competitiveness so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what we get out of the LCS, and we get it on Saturday. So
Yeah.
by the time the next All Chat episode comes out, we'll be talking about LCS.
Yeah, exactly.
Big moves.
Yeah. I think we've pretty much hit on everything that we've wanted to hit on. Just for the viewers that don't know or listeners, our podcast is going to be releasing every Friday. And we're going to be having a video format as well, posted on YouTube and Twitch on those days as well. So you can expect a new episode from us every Friday.
Weekly, baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'll keep you all in the loop with what's going on in the Major 4 leagues. If there's anything major out of some of the smaller regions, we'll be sure to hit on that as well. But I think as of right now, everything's kind of getting going, and we're all just excited for the winter season here.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay up to date with us on socials. We're going to have a TikTok and YouTube Reels coming out pretty soon. We're getting that underway. We'll have a YouTube, like Grayson said, and Twitch, and then on all major podcast platforms. So tune in Fridays. We'll be putting out some other content sporadically, but that's when you can catch us every week.
Yeah. And make sure you come back. It's all chat, baby. I know you guys are typing in that every day while playing. So
All Chat Lol. That's
Yeah.
us.
that is us. Hope you guys enjoyed this pod, and come back next Friday for the next episode.